Look, you're with your girl at a bar, and this guy comes up and grabs your ass. What you do? So this is Andrew Koppelman. He is the John Paul Stevens Professor of Law and Political Science at Northwestern University. He says, I am terrified by a paragraph that Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote a few weeks ago. Wait till you read it. You should be too. He and two other justices think the Constitution forbids states from imposing on religious dissenters the kind of vaccination requirements that freed the United States from diphtheria, measles, and polio. If these judges have their way, those diseases may come back. These Supreme Court justices, in their ignorance, think the Constitution forbids states from imposing on religious dissenters. You could just stop there, right? You could just stop there and go, of course it does. Of course it does. Religious dissent founded this nation. Of course it does. All right. A bit of a background. In June, Justice Samuel Alito, joined by Gorsuch and Justice Clarence Thomas, the trio, the triad, declared that the free exercise clause of the First Amendment should be understood to hold that a law that imposes a substantial burden on the exercise of religion must be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling interest. This is strict scrutiny. Strict scrutiny being applied to an enumerated right in the First Amendment is not new, is not revolutionary. It's actually, at this point, basic constitutional law. You're talking about the free exercise of religion being a highly protected civil right, because of course it is. Of course it is. This is the same as content-based speech, viewpoint-based discrimination of speech, right? Viewpoint-based censorship of speech, where this is the same test of them trying to make a law that says, if I say all Republicans are turbo cucks, it's because I called out Republicans. That is the viewpoint-based, right? Or opinion, this idea that it's the viewpoint that I'm taking is the offensive part. They have to go through the same strict scrutiny to restrict that speech. They have to have a compelling interest, and the regulation must be narrowly tailored to serve that compelling interest. So here we go. The compelling interest test is, this court has said, the most demanding test known to constitutional law. It means that a right has been infringed. The party challenging the law will probably win, and the government has a heavy burden of proof. Yes, exactly. The court has never defined what counts as a compelling interest. Generally, it has relied on common sense, an interest that any reasonable person would understand to be very important. This is not an accurate depiction of compelling interest, okay? It's best understood in the other context. This is a law professor. He should be explaining this better. But you have a legitimate government interest, okay? That is one interest that the government has, something that it is constitutionally authorized to do: mint money, incur public debt, provide for the general defense. These are important. These are legitimate government interests. Okay. The next, that's called a rational basis test. You have to be rationally related to a legitimate government interest. It's the lowest bar. It's where many, many laws that government passes sit, because these don't really infringe on rights most of the time. This is some sort of attenuated infringement of the right. So they say, no, the government has a legitimate interest in managing public health. So therefore, the government can speak out, can buy some ad space about promoting masks. There you go. You have a legitimate government interest in promoting public health, and then you have something rationally related to it. The government thinks masks work. They get to talk about masks. Cool. All good. They get to use some government resources on it. Fine. Next, you go to intermediate scrutiny, which was created because they got tired of losing to strict scrutiny. But long story short, intermediate scrutiny must be an important government interest. It's got to be important. So not just legitimate, but it's got to be something above legitimacy, something a little bit more interesting to the United States. And then strict scrutiny is compelling. So not only is it legitimate, not only is it important, but it's compelling that the government act on this. Protecting the lives of the citizenry is a compelling government interest, for example. And it's what they're going to argue is a compelling government interest in any vaccine related thing. They're going to say, well, this is how we protect the lives of the people. The hard part of the test comes in that narrowly tailored. Is this the least restrictive means to getting to our compelling government interest? Is this the least restricted way of getting our regulation to work? Is there some other less restrictive measure that we could take to quote unquote save lives, for example? If there is, then you're going to lose. So he could have really explained this. I mean, he's a law professor. I'm a YouTuber. I barely remember these things without looking them up. And I didn't read the article because who needs to? I know exactly what it's going to say. But yeah, so I'm giving you an on-the-fly definition. This is a law professor writing an op-ed in the Hill. He could have spent one paragraph explaining what it really is. And it certainly is not an interest that any reasonable person would understand to be very important. That's not a compelling government interest. Typically, you have to have an enumerated power. Like if Congress is passing a law, it should probably be something really related to something in Article 1, Section 8, or maybe Section 9 of the Constitution. And then you have to have that least restrictive means or, anyway, here we go. Most litigation turns on whether the law proposes to do. Most litigation turns on whether what the law proposes to do is really all that necessary to the end the state is pursuing. Whether, for instance, prison security, obviously a compelling interest, is really jeopardized if Muslim inmates grow half-inch beards. Now you start to see the political bent in this one. But compelling interest is the indispensable starting point. Unless the state can point to such an interest, it will automatically lose. Now, here is the paragraph. In October, the court declined to block Maine's requirement that healthcare workers be vaccinated against the coronavirus, notwithstanding their religious objections. So they weren't blocking all mandated vaccines, only the religious objection to the vaccine. Only the small subset of people who say, wait, I have a strongly held belief that says that I should not have this vaccine. That's a small amount of people, okay? Gorsuch, dissenting, joined Thomas and Alito, wrote the following. So the court didn't block that, by the way. The court says, I don't care if you have a strongly held belief, you can be mandated to have the vaccine. Thank you, Supreme Court. Thank you. Very, very good. Great job. All right, here we go. This is the paragraph that so scares this law professor. Quote, I accept that what we said 11 months ago remains true today. That stemming the spread of COVID-19 qualifies as a compelling interest. Remember that whole thing up above where he's like, oh, the compelling interest. You got to get to the compelling interest. Gorsuch flat out says, yeah, stopping an epidemic is a compelling government interest. It relates directly to public health. It's saving the lives of the citizenry. It provides for the common defense from threats, both foreign and domestic. This one comes from China or whatever. So they have a compelling reason, right? So he's been bitching this whole time about the compelling nature of it. Gorsuch is flat out admitted to it. Remember, this guy is scared of this. Okay, qualifies as a compelling interest. At the same time, I would acknowledge that this interest cannot qualify as such forever. It won't always be compelling. Uh-oh. Back when we decided Roman Catholic diocese, there were no widely distributed vaccines. Today, there are 3. At that time, the country had comparably few treatments for those suffering with the disease. Today, we have additional treatments and more appear near. If human nature and history teach anything, it is that civil liberties face grave risks when governments proclaim indefinite states of emergency. This law professor is scared of that last line. If human nature and history teach anything, it is that civil liberties face grave risks when governments proclaim indefinite states of emergency. And we, of course, do, because the government's power is no longer that of a constitutional republic under an emergency. We see constitutional rights stamped out constantly in states of emergency. When those states of emergency become indefinite, the Constitution isn't worth the paper it's written on. It's not even suitable for toilet paper at that point. It's just useless. Plus, I think it's like papyrus. Seems like that would chafe or something. But this is what these are the people teaching the next generation law and politics. It's important to know your enemy. The enemy is not this guy. If this was your enemy, would you ever be scared of it? Would you ever be afraid of that? Like that guy comes up and says, "Hey man, I heard you've been talking shit about my girl, you know what I'm saying?" He comes up and says that. Are you scared of this guy ever in any situation? It's a Muppet. It's not that. It's what's up here. It's what's up here. It's these ideas. It's the inflated attention being given. Oh, I'm a law professor. Oh, you're a law professor? Why? Why? Why do we listen to you? What about that makes you an authority on anything? You teach a bunch of idiots coming through your school how to do a thing. Great. So do lots of people. That's fine. We'd never be scared of this. We're only scared of the inordinate amount of power and perceived authority this person has because they have two fake words attached to their name. Two fake words that are all appeal to authority fallacies. It's a walking fallacy, and it's law and professor. Because this guy is professing about the law, and he's doing it incorrectly, and he's not recognizing that this is the correct statement from Gorsuch. This isn't even controversial. This statement is just a statement of what is. Yeah, by the way, when a government suspends constitutional protections, if they do that indefinitely, that's actually bad for the people. It's actually bad for the people if they suspend constitutional protections. So maybe that's all we need to consider. Real quick, he says, it is hard to know what future Gorsuch imagines. Is it hard to know? I mean, you have dystopia, you have tyrannical regimes all over the globe. Look at Venezuela. Look at Nicaragua. Look at Russia. Look at China. Look at North Korea. Look at Cambodia. Look at Vietnam. Look at Sri Lanka. Look at fucking Singapore, right? I mean, some of these places are better off than others, but they all have these insane restrictions. And people who live there live in terror of their governments because they don't have. Look at Australia. Yeah. I was talking more long-term ones, but Australia is a great short-term example too. Hard to know what future he imagines. The one where you can't here, let me help you. What's your fucking name? Koppelman. Let me help you, Koppelman. Here's the future he imagines. It's one where the government has never ended its COVID state of emergency and can inject you by force with whatever it wants because it says it's an emergency. That's the future he imagines. It's not hard to imagine. It's literally here. It's literally here right now. You don't have to imagine. Just go outside. Just open your eyes like, damn. When he wrote that, COVID-19 was killing 1,000 Americans every day. Yeah, I'm sorry, but your constitutional rights don't stop because people die. In fact, your constitutional rights exist through people dying because they're rights, not privileges, not licenses, not grants from the government. They're rights given to you by God, nature's God, by the creator, by Vishnu, by Arby's. It doesn't matter who gave you the rights. You have them by very merit of your birth. By surviving the abortion mill, you spewing yourself out down your mom's natural slip and slide, suddenly you get all these rights, and you get them no matter what. That's the one thing that separates America from everywhere else on the damn planet, is that you made it out. You made it out. You kicked your way past those labia and you fell out into the earth screaming. And because of that, we go, yeah, this guy did it. This guy made it. Now he gets to speak. He gets a gun if he wants one. We can't put soldiers in his house. He has a right to security in his persons, property, and papers. He has the right to due process. We can't just kill him or lock him up. He has a right to an attorney, because if we try and kill him and lock him up, someone smarter than his dumbass who got in that situation gets to argue on his behalf. Those things we give them. We don't even give them to you. We just recognize that they exist because you made it out. You got out of that uterine prison. Let's go full men's rights here. You busted out of that uterus jail. And so you get these things. You survived Planned Parenthood. You made it. Doesn't matter at this point. You could be abandoned. You could be adopted. You could be sold into some sort of trafficking and escape. Anything that you're going to get those rights. You're going to have them. They were instilled in you. They're woven into your DNA. USA does that, or at least it did. At least it's supposed to. And it does that no matter how many people die, no matter how many old people you cough on or whatever, you get to keep that. Because if you don't get to keep that, then you never had it in the first place. It's why we still get to travel when travel is inherently dangerous. Travel is horrifically dangerous to a human, by the way. Has been forever. One of the riskiest things you can do is go somewhere. You're leaving your territory that you know. You're introducing yourselves to all sorts of dangers and variables, most notably other people, and other people are broken. It's why you still get to own property. By the way, owning property is probably the second most dangerous thing you can do after leaving your property. You still get to own it. Even though on your own property, you're exposed to myriad hazards. Try doing the dishes. Try doing the dishes with music on and trip over the dishwasher. More people die from that. More people die from their dishwasher than die from rifles. But you still get to own your house. It's insane. These people are crazy. This is why the founder said, hey, you know what? Some weirdo, I had a vision. Some weirdo named Koppelman is going to, in the future, he's going to argue that people shouldn't have rights because someone else died. That sounds stupid. We better take these things and write them down like, look, you might be restricting some rights, but these ones you don't get. Like, we're going to just write these down so you realize, no, we really mean it. We really mean it here. That's what they did. They took that stuff out of the democratic process. They took that away from the weasels like Koppelman. Said, you're going to need a lot of support to get rid of these things. Or one activist court. But that's a different rant for a different day. All right, here we go. The wonderful new interventions he cites so triumphantly have been less successful than everyone had hoped. Have they? Have they, Koppelman? Can you say that? Can you actually say that? And first of all, less successful doesn't mean not successful. It just means less successful than the propaganda. And you have to consider that it's similarly propagandized. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. And by the way, you have a president and a Fauci, whatever that fucker is. You have these two things saying that doctors who have done their independent research and have come to a different conclusion than them aren't real doctors, that they're quacks. that they can't possibly be right. How do you fight with that? You get two artificial authorities. One of them doesn't even remember his own name most of the time. The other one says, "I am the science." These two people we're supposed to credibly accept what they say uncritically. And doctors who disagree with them are labeled as what? They're labeled as not real. Like they're relegated to being Australia. In large part because of the very vaccine resistance he is trying to abet. Again, I don't care if the vaccine is 100% effective and also spawns a trail of success into the person's life where they get vaccinated and they're like, haha, I'm immune to COVID and cancer. And I also grew 8 inches of muscle mass in my arms. I'm a super Chad now. And I got a job with a $300,000 starting salary. And someone says, but I don't want that though. Then they don't have to have it. That's what a right means. Rights are risk. Rights are inherent risk. Your speech has a risk. Someone might not like it. Someone might not like you. Someone might try to hit you because of what you say. Someone might try and ruin your career based off of what you say. Someone might kill you for what you've said. It's your right. That's what makes it worth keeping. All right. Gorsuch is, one hopes, not fool enough to think that the disease is about to be eradicated. If that is right, then he can only mean that the level of death will decline to a point that is acceptable to him. So acceptable that the state will no longer have a compelling interest in preventing those deaths. Yes, kind of like the speed limit. The state doesn't even need a compelling interest to reduce the speed limit to 5 miles an hour. You want to prevent basically all highway fatalities? 5 mile an hour speed limit. Not only that, mandate that car manufacturers cannot make cars that go over 5 miles an hour. Just do it. Just get rid of road travel altogether. Everything's a city bus or a train or a plane. That's it. You will eliminate 99.9% of travel fatalities. Just do that. There you go. Why don't they do that? Oh, because there's an acceptable level of death. Because of course there is. There's always an acceptable level of death. One is too many. Yeah, I mean, in some cute little philosophic way, yes, one death is too many. No one believes this on earth, that one is too many. Most people are fine with the fact that lots of people die to bring you your stupid reality television shows. Tons of people die, especially if they're on set with Alec Baldwin. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about linemen who work on the electrical lines. I'm talking about people, the foresters who clear the path for the electrical lines. I'm talking about people who work on radio antennas and get cooked because the signal's too high. All sorts of shit can go wrong. And just to bring you reruns of Seinfeld and Law and Order or whatever, we're like, look, if one person dies involved in TV production, you got to shut the whole thing down. No more TV. No one on earth was like, well, I mean, let's be real here. I never liked Earl anyway. He's fine. I mean, I'm sorry that he was chasing a squirrel down a telephone pole and he hit the ground first. Like, that sucks. But you gotta watch me some Real Housewives. Yes. And he will vote to order religious exemptions, even if the state proves that people will die as a result. Are you terrified yet? No, I'm not terrified yet. And I won't be ever terrified of the fact that the state, what terrifies me is that the state might actually win. That's what terrifies me. That's the one thing that has always terrified me, is that the state might win. It might come out on top in a question of my rights. It's the most terrifying prospect of all. And if you don't agree, please keep watching the channel. I will help you out of that bootlicking status state that you are stuck in, that you've been propagandized into, that you have been lied into for your entire life. I will help you. We're friendly here. All right, that's all I'm going to do on that one. He's first of all, his legal analysis is flat out bad. His legal analysis is flat out bad. It's incomplete and it's backwards. But are you noticing that yet? Are you noticing that everybody on a particular side of these issues, they're arguing from the backwards end of it. They're arguing the opposite of what you know to be true, of what you feel to be true, of the logic of all of these things. Well, just think how bad it would be if the government couldn't force me to do something. Oh, God, what a hellhole. Someone might not get vaccinated. Well, that sucks. Oh, well. You're going to see that. You are seeing it everywhere right now. That is what's going on. It is the tactique du jour, tactique du temps. If we're French, don't be French. Okay, let's go to this next thing.
So pour out an odd bag of Balmore and Lafroig. Spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea post on Twitter as we hear Lost Planning tonight. From the white shores of Nan to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the thought better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law